It was in the trenches of World War I that the seeds of the Third Reich were sown. After fighting a hard and unrelenting war over 4 years, disillusioned German soldiers would return home to a country humiliated in defeat. It was the new era of the Weimar Republic. Germany was sliding towards financial ruin, where it would cost 4 billion marks to buy just $1. Under these conditions, only the super-rich were able to profit. The middle classes would lose all their savings, and the working classes would not be able to afford to eat. The despair and resentment that followed would change the course of world history forever. The spark that would ignite the firestorm of the Third Reich was one insignificant Austrian private in the German army, Adolf Hitler. Like many others, he could not stand the bitter taste of defeat, and his mind turned towards entering politics. Hitler returned to his adopted home of Munich in November 1918 to find a city in turmoil. In Munich, as in other cities in the defeated Germany, returning soldiers were forming revolutionary groups, and bitter street fighting would regularly erupt. The country had been shamed by the conditions set by the Treaty of Versailles.
Under the terms of the Treaty of Versailles, the German Republic lost a number of territories. It lost all Germany's overseas colonies. To the west, it lost the provinces of Alsace and Lorraine to France, and the German Rhineland was demilitarized, which is to say no troops could be stationed in it as a protection to the French. To the south, Germany lost the Sudetenland to the new Republic of Czechoslovakia, and to the east, in the most extraordinary of the stipulations of the Treaty of Versailles, the new Republic of Poland was given a corridor along the line of the Vistula through to the port of Danzig at the sea, and this Vistula corridor separated East Prussia from the rest of Germany. The German army was reduced to 100,000 men, long service soldiers only, with no tanks, no aircraft, and no general staff structure. The German Navy was reduced to 6 obsolete battleships, with a provision of no more ships of more than 10,000 tons, which was just about enough for coastal defence. And with the absence of reserves, this was meant to make it impossible for the Germans ever to threaten the peace of Europe again.
While still in the army, Hitler was asked to spy on a small group of people who called themselves the German Workers' Party. Their right-wing views appealed to the disillusioned private. He decided to join the party. He later said, "It was the most decisive resolve of my life. From here, there could be no turning back." Almost immediately, he took an active role in the party, and by July 1921, he was their leader. Its support was growing steadily, and it was renamed the National Socialist German Workers' Party, or Nazis for short. The symbol for the party was chosen by Hitler himself. The swastika was an ancient symbol that Hitler had redesigned for his own needs. He revealed, "A symbol it really is. In red we see the social idea of the movement. In white, the nationalist idea, and in the swastika, the mission of the struggle of the Aryan man." It was this time that the eventual hierarchy of the party was assembling. The faithful Rudolf Hess, always at Hitler's side, Hermann Goering, a swaggering wartime aviator who had received Germany's highest award for valor, and Ernst Röhm, a serving army officer. Röhm would lead the newly formed Sturmabteilung, or SA. Their purpose was to protect the Nazi rallies of the time. But they soon became a more sinister paramilitary force on the streets of Germany. The brown shirts, as they were known, disrupted opponents' meetings and used violence against the left and the Jews. Hitler approved of a culture of fear, as the next few years would prove. In September 1923, 200,000 people attended a rally in the ancient city of Nuremberg. Hyperinflation was tearing the country apart, and there were rumors of an attempted coup by the communists. On the 8th of September 1923, the Nazis attempted a putsch in Bavaria. This was quickly put down by the regular army. Goering was severely wounded in the fighting that followed, and 16 of the marchers were killed. Hitler was later arrested and was sentenced to 5 years in Landsberg jail. He only spent 9 months there and was able to write his book Mein Kampf, which was to become a bestseller. On Hitler's release from Landsberg, Field Marshal von Hindenburg was now president, and the country was starting to rebuild slowly. The next few years saw a slow growth in the party's fortunes, and in 1928 they managed to win 12 of the 491 seats in the Reichstag. The turning point for the Nazis was the Wall Street crash in 1929. It led to widespread poverty and unemployment in Germany. This fueled the membership of the party, as the Nazis promised more jobs and economic stability. It was the opportunity that Hitler had been waiting for. In 1931 saw Ernst Röhm expanding the role of the SA, who by this time could put on a show of over 100,000 uniformed members, much to the dismay of the political authorities. By 1932, and despite a ban on the wearing of political uniforms, the SA's strength was up to 400,000. However, as they increased in strength, they also became a problem for Hitler. The Nazi Party lacked support amongst the middle classes and wealthy industrialists. But by 1932, this situation was changing. Gustav Krupp donated millions of marks to the party, and their support increased further. In 1932, Franz von Papen was appointed as Chancellor. He immediately scheduled elections, which spiraled into street fighting between the Nazis and the Communists. No party gained a majority. Further elections called in that year saw the Nazis become the largest party in the Reichstag, but without an overall majority. coalition of right-wing parties invited Hitler to become Reich Chancellor, believing they could control him. They were clearly wrong. On the 30th of January 1933, Hitler became Chancellor. He appeared on the balcony of the Reich Chancellery with President von Hindenburg behind him. The former Austrian beggar was now in control of his beloved Germany. Hitler immediately set about consolidating his power. On February the 27th, the Reichstag went up in flames. Hitler blamed this on the communists and used it as an excuse to suspend all civil liberties. The Enabling Act was passed, giving him dictatorial powers. Political opponents and dissenters were arrested and sent to newly built concentration camps at Oranienburg and Dachau. Persistent opponents were simply shot. Literature that the Nazis considered seditious was burned in the streets. Hitler's propaganda minister, Dr. Joseph Goebbels, presided over one of these occasions. However, Hitler's grip on power was not yet safe. The party meeting in 1933 was called the Congress of Victory and was another spectacular event. Hitler once again used his powerful oratory to inspire the crowd.
Wollen wir ringen und wollen wir kämpfen und niemals erlahmen und niemals ermüden und niemals verzagen und niemals verzweifeln.
In 1934, the SA was now almost 4 million strong, and Rome and its leaders posed a real threat to Hitler. His response was swift and brutal. On the 30th of June, the SS and Gestapo rounded up the SA's leaders in what was known as the Night of the Long Knives. Old scores were settled, and Rome himself was shot the next day. With the threat of the SA neutralized, Hitler's grip on power was complete. 2 days later, the SS, commanded by Heinrich Himmler, was granted the status of independent organization. This freed them to set about the tasks of eliminating all opposition to the Nazis. The road to power was complete. The road to war was just beginning. Propaganda was a powerful weapon for the Nazis. Triumph of the Will was a film of the party rally in 1934. This showed a strong and positive image of the Nazis to the world, and Hitler was portrayed as a Wagnerian hero. The film won many awards internationally and would be the most powerful piece of propaganda of the Nazi era.
Mein Führer, ich melde.
This, however, masked the true intent of the Nazis, the persecution of the Jews. Laws were passed depriving them of all their civil rights. The party coordinated attacks on Jewish businesses and synagogues. These attacks would culminate with the infamous Kristallnacht. Soon, even greater crimes would be committed against them. In August 1934, President von Hindenburg died. Hitler now proclaimed himself Führer of the German Reich. Soldiers would now swear allegiance to him instead of Germany. His expansionist ambitions would require a powerful military machine, something that the Treaty of Versailles did not allow the Germans. He ordered the creation of a Luftwaffe and the rapid expansion of the army. In reality, both these things had been happening in secret since the 1920s. In 1936, Hitler publicly repudiated the Treaty of Versailles. The French and British protested strongly, but did nothing. Conscription was reintroduced, and the production of arms by companies like Krupp was stepped up. However, Hitler desperately needed the industrial areas of the Saar and the Rhineland.